All right, everybody, you know what it is. It is a three-man weave episode today. Celtics are rolling. They are on an 8-game winning streak. We're going to get into it. We're going to preview the week ahead. And of course, you know what we're going to do. We're going to pass the rock. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy, Will Ware, checking in. How you doing? How you living? The three-man weave is united together again on what is a beautiful Sunday as we're recording here. Joining me first up, we got my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only, Greg Manakis.
What's up, man? What's up, man? I saw Adam looking around. Like you said, it was a beautiful day, but we live in a different place than Adam. So for some people, it might not be beautiful, Will.
See, here's the thing. You guys got to think outside the box. I don't necessarily just mean the day is in the weather. It's a beautiful day. The Celtics are on an 8-game winning streak. They're miles ahead in the Eastern Conference. They're 3/4 of a mile ahead in the entire NBA. So you got to look outside the box, guys. It's not always just what's outside your window. And speaking of windows, who's looking out the window right now, let's bring in our podcasting cousin from across the pond, the lead writer for Celtics blog, and of course the leader of the Taylor gang. It's Adam Taylor. What's popping?
Yo, what's popping? How you doing, man? I'm doing good. I got tea in England, drinking tea, looking at the clouds. I'm happy, man. The Celtics on an 8-game winning streak. They beat the Knicks, baby.
In England, drinking tea, looking at the clouds is the most English thing you've ever said.
Yeah, don't get used to it. It doesn't have. I try to act as non-English as possible, but the accent kind of trips me.
And the fact that you're a writer, that feels like that's almost made in a rom-com. That's like what they would put as the main character. Like, what do? They've got a scarf on, they're drinking some tea, writing in their notebook. I mean, you're basically living like the stereotypical dream of someone who wants to be in England.
Yeah, like for me, that's not the stereotypical dream. Like,
right. I'm saying it's not for you, but that is.
Just finding like drinking like afternoon tea in like with tea and crumpets with a. Yeah, I can see that. With a flat cap like out of Peaky Blinders and just looking.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see that.
I'm picturing a scarf in this scenario. Do you own any scarves, Adam? Are you a scarf wearer?
I did before I drove. Like here, public transport's like super accessible. So for a long time, I didn't drive. So then when you're waiting for a bus and it's cold and wet, yeah, I had a scarf. Now, no, I drive, dude. I don't need a scarf for shit. But back in the day, I had a couple. I had different ways of doing them up to, depending on how much warmth you needed.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I just. We'll get to basketball in just a second here, but I wish I was more of a scarf guy. Greg, you had a scarf guy phase. I feel like I wasn't.
I could see
we moved to hot weather when we were 22, 23 years old. So just haven't really had the need. It's not cold enough. But I feel like even when we were younger and we were in Boston, you went through a scarf phase.
Yeah, man. I mean, sometimes, especially me, I got a little bit of a long neck. So I have a little bit more. You don't have a neck. You have no neck. I have a long neck.
My beard is my scarf.
Exactly. So for me, I think I needed that scarf just because my neck is a little bit longer than most. And I try to living in Boston. It's freaking cold in the wintertime, dude. So I remember like New Year's Eve, scarf was always part of my outfit on New Year's Eve going out in Boston for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I like a good scarf. I like when I see some of these guys in the the JetBlue runway and so on and so forth. I always kind of notice like, man, it's a nice scarf from JT. It's a nice scarf, So, maybe one day when I'm back in the cold weather, I'll man up and get on my scarf game. But let's transition here. Let's get into some basketball, and as I mentioned at the top, Celtics have continued their winning streak post All-Star break, 2 games in a row so far to start. They are now up to an 8-game winning streak and are also 8 games up on the Cleveland Cavaliers for the top seed in the Eastern Conference. Last night, as we're recording on Sunday, they may not hear this till Monday, depending on which platform you're listening to this on. Celtics, took down the Knicks 116-102. Adam, you had your 10 takeaways article, and I kind of just want to hop around this game for a little bit. We know the Knicks were depleted, right? This isn't the Knicks that if and when we played them in the postseason, they're going to have a very different feel. You could tell a lot of lineups that featured both Precious Achua and Isaiah Hartenstein probably not going to be the norm when they have their full group out there. But Adam, from your 10 takeaways, what would be the number one takeaway that you'd want us to talk about here today?
Yeah, I feel like saying Jaylen Brown is kind of like taking the easy route. One thing that I really tried to focus on was the Swiss Army knife approach to Drew Holiday. Just the defense that he brought to the game, the way he was plugging gaps on both sides of the floor. One moment is a primary defensive guy at the point of attack. The next moment, he's spacing the floor as a corner catch and shoot guy. Next thing, he's running pick and rolls from, and he just kind of, I wouldn't even call it scaled. I used the word morphed in the takeaways. Like he was just kind of evolving within the game and into different roles throughout. And I think that gave the Knicks a bunch of issues, especially like Dante DiVincenzo, that's been incredible for New York this season. Really good defender. He's really performing well offensively from free. But trying to track Drew and figure out where that was and how to kind of get advantages against him, it was just really difficult for them. The Knicks as a whole, DiVincenzo, to play in this clip here is just the Knicks running a floppy action with Drew trailing as the chaser and then just blowing it up right at the end, which I thought was just a nice kind of like, hey, here's your Sunday morning. Here's Drew Holiday just absolutely destroying Jalen Brunson on a floppy action. Here you're running this to get Brunson an open free. And Drew's just like, no, you're not allowed that. That's too easy. I just think he was really, really important in this game. And sometimes I feel like he kind of falls through the cracks when we're talking about one of the Celtics' most important players. I don't even remember what this one was. You can play it if you want. Oh, it was just him scoring, I think. Yeah, it was just a bit of post-creation kicking. Oh, no, it was just a catch and shoot free.
Yeah, and Holiday's just been money from the corners all year, shooting like over 60%, which is just
Does
great.
not miss.
One
Say
of the
again,
best,
Adam?
one of the best corner free shooters in the league this season, right? Or the
I think he's the best. I think he's around 60%. I don't remember exactly what that number is, but it's something crazy like that. But Adam, to your point, Greg and I actually got together and watched this game last night, and so we were saying one of the things that just feels almost unfair, because actually the Knicks did a pretty damn good job of keeping this game within the range they did, despite the Celtics shooting. See, what were the final numbers of the Celtics shooting here? They actually dropped down to 57% from the field on the night, 43% from three. That was up around 70%, and I think 56, 57% entering the fourth quarter. So, for the Celtics to be that hot, the fact that the Knicks, and being as decimated as they were, kept it within striking distance, right? Like there was a period where the Knicks put a scare into the Celtics, got it down to 9. I'm using the word scare lightly here, but got it to within 9, right? For a game that felt like, when you just look at the box score, it's like this should be a 20, 30-point game right now. And the fact that the Knicks were within 9 with 8.5 is kind of a testament to why they're going to be a pain in the ass to play in the playoffs. But one thing, back to what your original point was here, Adam, with Drew Holiday being forgotten sometimes with some of the stuff that he can do, is that there were so many times where Greg and I would just look at each other like, this really isn't fair, man. With some of the threes that KP was able to knock down after feeling like he was kind of silent for stretches, and then all of a sudden he hits 2 to 3 threes in a row from 3 to 4 feet beyond the arc. He has at one point, it's almost somewhat of a broken play. He has a little tip pass that goes over Jalen Brunson right to Sam Hauser. And of course, what does he do? He just knocks down a 3 casually. So this team is just loaded with weapons, and it really does feel kind of unfair at times. Greg, what did you have from last night that you want to talk about?
So 2 main things, kind of like high level things I wanted to bring up. One is Mazzulla's adjustments, and the adjustments between how we started the game, especially defensively, versus how we finished the game defensively. Early matchups, we started the game with Porzingis on Hartenstein, and Brunson was just living in the pick and roll, right? So in the second half, we decided to make a switch where we put Tatum on Hartenstein and we put Zinger on Precious. So we kind of got their preferred screener out of the action. So Precious came up into the action, and he was still able to make an impact because they were still bringing Porzingis into that pick and roll. And Brunson, he's just the type of point guard you can't really play drop against. So the Celtics then, what they decided to do was to put Porzingis on Hart and put Brown on Precious. So we had Tatum covering Hartenstein. We had Brown covering Precious. They're two preferred screeners for Brunson. So then the Knicks, even though they were still able to like get into pick and rolls, and they did some double drag actions to get Porzingis into the action eventually, but their offense just slowed down to the point because Mazzulla was just tinkering with stuff. He was like, okay, you're going to do this. Well, then we're going to do that. We have these guys that can guard up levels. And if Brunson gets switched onto JB or Brunson gets switched onto Tatum, there's nothing he can really do, as we saw after we made those adjustments and the Knicks started adjusting even more. Now Tatum decides to take Brunson as his primary assignment. So there's all these little things that the Celtics were kind of tinkering with defensively to figure out a way to guard Brunson in the high pick and roll. So that's the first thing I wanted to bring up.
So, sorry, I was kind of tripped over my own words, and it's a really good point. Mainly because, as you said, Brunson's not the guy you want to play drop against. He's got his floater game's too good. He can stop and pop from pretty much anywhere in that mid-range area. And because of that stop and pop ability, he can kind of manipulate you with eye movement, get you jumping or get you planting that front foot, so then he can just blow by on your weak hip. Tatum and Brown just don't give you that kind of space. So then you are dealing with someone bigger, stronger, just as quick, just as slivery. And then all of a sudden, Brunson's forced into being a bit more of a playmaker than what you probably want him to be, because he can pass the rock, as we're going to do in a bit, but he's not a Rondo type passer. He's not a Tyrese Halliburton level kind of floor general. He does thrive off creating gravity and then finding open guys that way. When you're suffocating him, he can't do any of those things. It's a really good point. And I think it kind of speaks to the evolution of Joe Mazzulla as like a thinking coach, somebody that's willing to take those dice rolls during a game, which we haven't necessarily seen all through the season. There's been times where he's been really kind of like he stood on those decisions, you know what I mean? I stand on that. And then there's been times where he's kind of just let them play through tough moments. I feel like we don't see them play through tough stretches as often anymore.
Well, Adam, one thing, that's interesting with Mazzulla, I feel like a lot of the kind of like out of the box thinking that he does is coming into the game. We don't necessarily see those adjustments happen like after halftime. Like he'll start the game with Drew Holiday on Joel Embiid, for example, right? Where like there's something that kind of throws the team out of whack. Whereas this game, it was like he saw it happening in real time and he was thinking about how they can make those adjustments, which is going to be so important when it comes to the playoffs, because he's going to have to pivot in these games and the team is going to have to pivot and be okay pivoting. So, I forget which pod it was. Maybe it was on the Mismatch where Chris Vernon, he said that as long as Joe Mazzulla is the coach of the Boston Celtics, like every other team has a chance. And I think tonight is a game. Well, last night was a game that kind of disproves that, because the national media still thinks of Joe Mazzulla as the same guy from last year, whereas we follow the team and we've seen huge, leaps and bounds of improvement out of Mazzulla. So I do think that the narrative around Mazzulla is going to kind of catch up to what we've seen this year.
And I think this is, Adam, you and I touched, I think it was you and I, Adam, that touched on this on a podcast earlier last week. With the Celtics having such a gap in the standings, this is the exact type of thing that we're going to be talking a lot about here as we go down this home stretch and we get into the playoffs. What are these experimentations? What are the in-game adjustments? What are the little things that, to your point, Greg, right now, whether it works or doesn't work, it's almost more about the process and how we get to them, and then what can translate in a moment of need when we get to the playoffs, because we have seen this growth and evolution. And Adam, I want to ask you this here quickly. Number one, elite tease on what we're going to be doing later in the show. Really loved that as a host. That was fantastic. Number two, Greg and I last night were watching the game, and going into it, one of the things that I was really looking for, and Greg brought it up without knowing that I was going to kind of be looking for this, was, are we going to see that kind of 2-1-2 spy zone with Drew Holiday in the middle? We've talked a lot about this is a counter for a guy like Jalen Brunson, the kind of guys that are going to snake the pick and roll, that are going to attack that drop coverage. And we didn't see it last night, but we started talking about it, and it's one of those things where it's kind of a catch-22. You don't want to show your hand because that's something you may want to utilize come playoff time, but also this is a great time to practice it. What were your thoughts? Were you a little surprised that this wasn't something that we saw, especially where Brunson was cooking really throughout the game? Brunson was far and away, I think, the one thing I would look at from this game is that's a problem, especially when you give him OG Anunoby, you give him Julius Randle, you give him a lob threat in Mitchell Robinson, that could be a problem by the time we get to the postseason. They have their fully formed team. Were you a little surprised that we didn't see that zone, or do you think it was better to save it for the playoffs?
I don't think it's better to save it for the playoffs. I think you need to work on it because it's far from perfect right now. There's a lot of bugs that need to kind of be figured out, a lot of kinks that you need to sort. I think for this game, New York seemed to be quite pleased with it. Well, not pleased, quite happy to kind of work from the perimeter, work from that mid-range area. So then that 2-1-2 zone doesn't really do much because if they're quite content shooting threes because they don't have the interior presence that you get when OG is there, when Randall's there, when Mitchell's there. So they're generating more on the perimeter, and then their interior plays coming off of how you react on the perimeter. I don't think a zone would have worked as well there because you're running a zone that is forcing them to play the way they're already playing in the game. So I just didn't feel like it was going to be a viable option in this game. I think that maybe later in the week we'll see them run some 2-1-2. I hope so, because if you're going to run it in the playoffs, you need to be damn confident it's going to work. And right now, if anybody's confident it's going to work, they need to go and see their therapist just for a quick 30-minute little sit down. So just so they can be told, get back in touch with reality, grab a grip, because it's not going to work right now. But that'd be why I wasn't shocked that we didn't see it, just because I felt like New York style of play didn't suit running that zone at that time.
I think that's a good point. The other thing I wanted to bring up before we move on from the Knicks game was just that we unleashed Tatum. Tatum didn't sit in the second half until the last minute of the game. And I brought that up. I think it was like in the third quarter to Will. I was like, I don't think Tatum's been out in the second half. And, the idea of Tatum reaching this different level of what value looks like in the MVP discussion. Mazzulla brought it up after the game. He kind of poked fun at the narrative around Tatum. He said that this was like one of the best games he's seen out of Tatum. His willingness and ability to guard Brunson and to take that matchup on. That was something I kept saying, Will, right, as we were watching the game. I was like, Tatum needs to guard Brunson. At some point in this game, he's going to have to guard Brunson, and he did it in the third quarter. He did it for a quick stretch in the first half, but the third quarter is when he really made his mark on Brunson, guarding him for, I think it was like maybe like 6 possessions in a row from 6 minutes to 2 minutes in that third quarter. And this is why I believe Tatum needs to be in that MVP discussion, because of his two-way impact. And I don't think people realize how good of a defender Jason Tatum is. They had him on Hartenstein. I know Hartenstein's not the greatest big in the world, but the fact that Tatum, you can just throw him on a center if it's not like a Joel Embiid, that not many small forwards in the league can do that. You know what I mean? Not Luka Doncic is not going to take on that matchup. Luka Doncic is not going to take on Jalen Brunson. And this is something that Tatum is able to do, that I'm just so impressed with his ability to make an impact two-way. And then also last night, not need to impact the game with scoring. He was just setting the table the entire game for everybody else to do their thing.
Yeah, I think it feels like Tatum is kind of primed for. Sorry, Adam, didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's fine. I was just making a joke.
I feel like this is, as you were talking, Greg, this feels kind of primed for, as the Celtics go on this playoff run, if they, depending on who their opponents are, as they go up against maybe a Jalen Brunson, maybe a Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, maybe
Halliburton,
Giannis, Lillard. My point being, the range of versatility that we're going to see Tatum have to go from series to series, potentially get to the finals, and you might see Jamal Murray, you might see SGA, you might see Ann Edwards. You're going to see all these different types of guys that he has to guard. And the fact that he's making it such an emphasis, and he's letting his, the raw statistical numbers take a dip to be able to focus on those other areas. I think this could be one of those times where, looking ahead to next year and years after, where it's almost going to come in like, oh yeah, Jason Tatum, he's an all defensive guy. Which right now, that's not the common perception.
Well, think about it this way. We have Jrue Holiday, we have Derek White, and we have Jaylen Brown all in the lineup with Jason Tatum. If you needed a guy to shut somebody down for a couple possessions in a row that had it cooking, who's the guy that you're really going to out of that four? To me, it's Tatum. Like, I really think it's Tatum. I think I would go to Tatum to shut down a guy over a very short period, over Drew Holiday, over Derek
Mhm.
White, over Jaylen Brown. I think throughout an entire game, you don't want to expend that much energy for
Yeah, that
Tatum.
probably goes to
But
Holiday in that
exactly,
scenario.
exactly. But that just shows you the elite level of defender that he is. That you could make an argument Tatum's the guy that's your, you know, everything is on the line. You need to stop. He's the guy that's covering the best player.
How do you feel about? Okay, so I've kind of got it in my head that the Clippers Celtics is probably going to be the NBA Finals this year.
Ooh, it's a little
So
spicy.
that, yeah, it is. But
A little, not
I
super
think the
spicy, just a
Clippers
little.
are the best team in the West in terms of just talent, and then I think that Boston are the best team in the East. So if we're just going on that, how would you feel then, knowing that hey, we need Tatum to shut down Kawhi for a few possessions, assuming Mazzulla starts off cross matching Drew on someone like Kawhi, which is how I would expect that series to at least begin. Do you feel like Tatum could shut down Kawhi for 4 or 5 possessions, or a PG that's completely on fire? Do we feel? I feel confident about that, but I don't know whether that's me being like, "Hey, I've watched Tatum since a rookie. He's one of my favorite players in the league." I don't know if there's some internal bias that's kind of shining through there, and maybe you guys have that same bias. But I am wondering, how do you feel there? Like PG's just gone on a 10-0 run in the last 2 minutes. Drew's getting smoked. We need someone to stop him. Do you feel comfortable throwing Tatum onto a matchup like that?
You know, it's interesting. I don't think PG is the type of guy that would give Holiday problems, that would give Derek White problems, or maybe he'd give JB some problems. But I think that he likes to play in space, kind of similar to Tatum. He doesn't like getting people, up into his jersey and getting into his space. He likes to have a rhythm. He likes to dance, and I think that those are the guys that Drew Holiday actually guards pretty well, who have clear basketball moves versus a guy like Jimmy Butler or a guy like Siakam, where it's just like, I don't know what the heck this guy's going to do. Cause it like this is not how you would teach it. You know what I mean? With Paul George, it's like, this is how you train basketball players these days. It's just so pretty. And I think Holiday is actually really good at guarding those guys. But Kawhi, we saw Tatum cover Kawhi well early in his career, where before he put on the shoulders, before he put on the weight, he's a really smart defender, especially against guys that like to get physical and play in the mid range. He's great at pulling the chair. He's great at leveraging space and getting up underneath guys in that mid post area, which is where Kawhi lives. And he's got the length. So I don't think
Yeah.
Kawhi is necessarily going to be able to just like get that shot off whenever he wants. I would be a little concerned if Kawhi just decided to play bully ball, because I think if Kawhi is settling for the mid-range jumper, Tatum's going to do fine. But if Kawhi is like, you know what, I'm just going to go through him, I think that's just another level. But maybe, Kawhi, his shot when everything's on the line is a mid-range jumper, right? He's not
Mhm.
going to try and to go through you when the
The
game's
Paul
on the line.
Pierce
So,
almost.
yeah, exactly.
The
Yeah.
Clippers scare me more than most teams in terms of who I wouldn't want a 7-game series against in the finals.
Oh, I mean, I
They've
think
just got
without
too
a
many
They're
doubt.
weapons.
so talented, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
And it's Kawhi. Like Kawhi is one of the few dudes that I still look at. Like, if you're just going in a 7-game series, he absolutely terrifies me. That he can take over on both sides of the ball. Now, this is where the Celtics top tier depth comes in. That almost all of their top tier depth goes 2 ways. Paul George and Kawhi will, go both. They can match that, right? But there's going to be a few holes that the Clippers might have that we don't have. But that will be a really interesting matchup. For your question, Adam, do I feel comfortable? 100%. I always push back on when we say, will he shut down this guy? Because I just don't think any of
I
these top
prefer the
tier
word
guys.
contain.
Yes, and I would 100% agree that I think there's a chance that he could contain that, because Kawhi is one of those guys, especially as we've seen in the postseason. You can have a great contest time and time again, and I think the length of Tatum and Greg, you brought up a really good point about the bully ball. Was the one thing in my head where if they were to get enough space, but then also you have Kristaps coming from the weak side, you have other options that potentially could come and help, but you know Kawhi will still get that shot off. Kawhi makes a bunch of shots that I don't really understand how he gets the ball off. Like, it looks like sometimes when he's contested on shots that I'm like, I don't even understand how the ball was released. And so that's where, contain, I think, is the right word, Adam. I feel comfortable, and I feel like there is a probability that he could contain Kawhi Leonard. And so yeah, I think the Clippers are a fast lane matchup. I put the Nuggets in there as well, as that being a team that I think is right there. I think it's between the two of them that we really look at it. But with that, let's start to go in and take a look at the week ahead here, because right now we're in a stretch of Boston being the national TV darling for the next week and a half, 2 weeks here. 7 straight games, including last night against the New York Knicks, that will be on either ABC, ESPN, or TNT. This week ahead, this brings up some more very interesting matchups that kind of all hit on different topics that we've already gotten into a little bit on the show today. So in the week ahead, just to set it up for the people at home here, they've got Tuesday night, Philadelphia, all these games at home. Philadelphia comes in on Tuesday night, still no Joel Embiid. Of course, they still have Tyrese Maxey. We're talking a lot about that drop coverage. That's another topic that we can talk about. Dallas, you have Luka Doncic. You have Kyrie Irving coming into the Garden. Talk a lot about different guys that the Celtics are going to have to match up, find different ways to contain and make sure that they can, keep those guys in check. And then Sunday, you get to the Golden State Warriors, which of course is always going to be an interesting matchup. Adam, as you look at this week ahead here, either which game or which, if you want to get a little bit more detailed, like, is there a certain matchup? What are you looking for the most out of this upcoming week for the Celtics?
Yeah, I mean, Philly doesn't worry me without Embiid. Like, they're still a good team. They're still going to play with good pace, good tempo. Maxey can just get hot, but I just don't think without Embiid, I don't think they have the depth or the high-end talent to really pose too much of a threat as long as the Celtics come in and execute the way they should. Dallas, I'm not going to sound low on Luka because
streaking Dallas.
But at the same time, I think Luka's one of the best players in the league, unlike everybody else. But what I do think is, one, I don't think Luka can play defense at a level you need from your best player at the moment. And if he can, we haven't seen it yet. Two, I don't think that his play style allows others to thrive. Like, I think a big man is always going to work well with Luka because of the pick and roll, the lob threat, and so forth. But outside of that, I don't think that he elevates his teammates the same way a Kawhi does or a Tatum does, or to a bit of a lesser extent an Embiid or a Giannis. So I'm not too worried about that Dallas game. If you win it, you win it. If you lose it, you lose it. I don't really think it makes too much of a difference in the grand picture of things. Dallas is in a team I'm worried about in the postseason. Don't even expect them to make it anywhere near the NBA Finals. Golden State, on the other hand, is a team I'm a little bit concerned about. They're surging right now. What is it? They've won 8 out of their last 10 games. They look
8-2 in their last 10, 3-game winning streak right now.
You've got that new look front court with Draymond, Kuminga, and Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins is playing like 2022 Wiggins again. So that concerns me because I think that matchup-wise, they have a lot of versatility in terms of scoring and defense. They still play quite a physical brand. You've got Draymond being Draymond, picking on Grant Williams in the last game. You know what I mean? Like, I saw what Grant did.
Grant.
Look, Grant probably deserved it a little bit, but like,
he almost always he's self-inflicting, but still, poor Grant.
Yeah, like, read the room though, man. Read the room. The Warrior, and then obviously you got Steph. Clay's coming off the bench right now, but you've got Podziemski's one of my favorite rookies this year. I think he's been so much
we were
fun.
saying that last night when we were just kind of talking about the week ahead. We basically had a pod without people recording, and I was talking about how much I love
one of those podcasts with legs, Adam.
I like those podcasts. We've done one of those with food.
But yeah, well, the last time the Celtics played the Warriors, Porzingis didn't play, right? I'm pretty sure he didn't play in that first game.
I think he was out.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how Porzingis being on the court adjusts things, because we haven't seen that yet, right? We've seen it against the Heat, a team that's given us issues. Porzingis completely changes the dynamic against the Heat. It'll be interesting to see how it changes against the Warriors. One thing that I just want to keep an eye out for this week, and especially against the Warriors, one of those undersized teams, is how much we play out of the post. In the fourth quarter against the Knicks, we were living in the post. We gave the ball to Al Horford like 3 possessions in a row, caused them to double. We gave the ball to Jalen in the post. They were doubling. We gave the ball to Tatum in the post. They were doubling. We played out of the post pretty much the whole fourth quarter against the Knicks. And I do think that's something that people, once again, there's people starting to talk about post-up frequency and all that with the Celtics, number 2 in the league and all that. But, when you see that this is a weapon that teams have to prepare for, how are the Warriors going to react to us posting up Al Horford in the fourth quarter or Jaylen Brown in the fourth quarter? Are they going to double? Are they going to send a double, or are they going to try and guard the yard and play us straight up? Because I do think that's one thing. Teams are overreacting to the Celtics in the post right now, with good reason, because we have so many talented players that we can kind of just get any shot that we want. But with teams that trust their individual defenders, I'm wondering how that's going to look, and if the Celtics still are able to move the ball to the level that we know they need to in order to unlock the superpower of the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the week ahead, styles make fights, right? So I think the Warriors are by far the most interesting team out of this next 3-game stretch. And when you factor in, the history of it right now, where it feels like it's a little, Pedro Martinez, call the Yankees my daddy type thing. You know what I mean? Like this feels a little bit like that right now. It's a baseball reference, Adam. Yeah, I knew that one. Might have got a little bit over the head, but it's okay. It's okay. Some of the audience will get that one. And so I think the history built into it, and like you guys said, having KP, I wonder what that does, and then how do the Warriors counter? And this goes to, I think Greg, you said it was maybe the mismatch or whatever that was saying. Joe Mazzulla is the underdog in each of these coaching matchups. Steve Kerr is a good coach, and I think that's going to be an interesting fight, right? Like Mazzulla versus Kerr. Let's kind of see how that plays out with the adjustments that they have, and then with Philly and Dallas. It was funny. I was thinking about Dallas coming in on a winning streak, and it reminded me of KG's retirement night. This is the same year the Celtics went to the finals, and Dallas came in on a hot streak and ruined KG. They didn't ruin KG's retirement night, but it always feels a little weird after a loss. Like, hey, let's all hang around and then celebrate Kevin Garnett. I think it was Spencer Dinwiddie hit like a game-winning shot with a few seconds left, but this is another version of this Mavericks team that's streaking, and once again, they play a different style. I haven't really had a chance to lock into them too much with the Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington edition. So I am interested to see what that looks like. And then
this will be my first look at them. This will be I haven't watched them since.
I've seen some highlights. I think I tuned into one of their games right before the break because Luka was cooking, so I caught a little bit of that. But and then with Philly, I think this might be the chance where, once again, I want to see how we defend a guy that is going to be known for, if we play him in the playoffs.
Go to the 2-on-2.
Exactly. This is the moment that you do it, because without Embiid, that's going to have to be their go-to, and you got to test it, you got to practice it to see what it looks like. So I do think that will be interesting. Anything else you guys want to touch on for the week ahead, or should we start
just to kind of put a bow on what I was saying about the Celtics fourth quarter offense? I have the shot chart pulled up from the Knicks game, just to take a look at it really quickly. So this is the Celtics shot chart from the fourth quarter. We shot 8 threes, missed them all. And this is something when I was texting Liptak, right, when he was talking about how the Celtics hit all their threes and whatnot. And I was like, yeah, but in the fourth quarter, we didn't hit threes, and we weren't overly reliant on the 3-point shot. And one of those 3-pointers was Jaylen Brown's meaningless 3 in the last seconds, right? So it's really 7 3-point shots there out of 23. So the frequency of how throughout the regular season, the Celtics shoot, I think it's like over 40% of their offense comes from 3-point land. 40% of their shots. Here, it's about 30% of their shots were from 3 in the fourth quarter. And I loved it because we were so hot coming into the fourth quarter. We clearly didn't have it going in the fourth quarter from 3, and we didn't just continue to shoot them. Right, we spammed the post ups. We crashed the glass. Peyton Pritchard getting offensive rebounds. That one possession where Al Horford got a couple offensive rebounds and ended up tipping the ball in. The Celtics played what the game required of them, right, in that moment, and we had the physical advantage inside, and we took advantage of that. Another great example of Mazzulla's adjustments and the guys' adjustments, because it's not just Mazzulla saying, go to the rack. It's the guys feeling it out and seeing that there's no shot blocker in there. We have the physical advantage. Let's get to the bucket.
I think what I want to add on to this is something we started to see before the All-Star break as well, right? Like for the 2 or 3 games before the All-Star break, it felt like there'd been more of a focus on getting into that post, getting around the rim than what was on. And we started to see more of like an even shot distribution, like a 40, 30, 20 type of thing from 3 to mid to rim to mid-range. You are right. The Celtics are shooting 43.8% of their total shots come from 3-point range. I would like to see that down around 37%. I think that's far more sustainable if you're going to start exchanging those additional threes for post-up opportunities, for additional opportunities at the rim. And I kind of touched on it in the takeaway. The shot diet for me, from what we saw against the Knicks, is far more conducive to this team's overall skill set than the shot diet we've seen earlier in the season, where it just feels like, hey, we've got a target of 40 threes or 45 threes a game. Let's just jack this one up because we need to tick that box, right? So I prefer this shot diet, especially as you said, with the adjustment of, okay, it's not really falling right now. Let's go and attack the rim. I'd rather it just be, hey, let's attack the rim, and if a free opens up, we'll kick it out. I don't like the over-reliance on perimeter shooting anyway, so I'm really enjoying this new shot diet.
And Adam, something I wanted to jump in, because I was reading your takeaways this morning. A really good point that you brought up is last night would have been an example of, it would have made sense almost, like if they fell into that trap, because they were shooting, as I pointed out earlier, 70% going, or 57% from three going into the fourth quarter last night. So, that was a game where it would have been pretty easy to be like, well, we took so many threes because we're making them all, so why wouldn't we continue to make them? But I think that was an interesting point, that, their shot diet was a lot more evenly balanced last night, despite the fact that it would have been a really easy game because of how hot they were to fall into that trap of, this is all we need to do. We don't need to get to the bucket quite as much. And this goes to a quote Joe Mazzulla had during the week about the Celtics being able to kind of adjust on the fly. And Greg, you touched on it as well. Like, it's not just Mazzulla calling a play or saying what to do. It's the players on the court themselves being able to make that adjustment, which is going to be a big part of when we get to the playoffs, that you can't always have the coach there to hold your hand. The players have to kind of know what to do and when to do certain things. So all good points. Really interesting to see how this week looks ahead. Like we said, Celtics on an 8-game winning streak, 8 games up on the Cleveland Cavaliers, but a lot of really fun matchups coming up. So a lot that we're going to be able to kind of dig into and parse out and see what we think that might mean for the future ahead. But for the future right now, let's go ahead and pass the rock. Wrong clip.
You guys ready?
What's the plan, Bobby?
We're winging it, Jerry. Yeah! I got the rock now. I got this motherfucker now. What?
Hey, it happens, guys. We all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. Here's the thing. You can't be perfect. You have to figure out how to adjust on the fly. There's not always going to be somebody there to tell you that you have the wrong clip queued up, and you got to switch it, and you got to do it at the right moment. So it happens. We make the adjustments. Let's pass the rock. So we're putting a little twist on that. For those of you that have listened to this before, we kind of kick it back around, just different topics. Right now, we're going to put a little twist on it. 3 topics, anything goes. That's the new concept of passing the rock here. You're going to see this on multiple 3-man weave episodes. So now when you know it's coming up, just be prepared. You don't know where it's going to go. And so, Greg, let's kick it off with you. Let's get us started here with passing the rock.
Well, I think the Mark Wahlberg Four Brothers clip kind of explains it perfectly. It's like, we're winging it, Jerry. That's what we're doing here, right? We don't really know. You guys don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know what you're going to say. This one is going to be pretty simple to start. It was my 35th birthday on Friday. So I want to talk about birthdays. First of all, happy birthday to me. Mike, in general,
it's a really funny way to start it.
Happy
So first of all,
dude, you gotta,
happy birthday to
you gotta
me.
love yourself, man. This is something that I'm trying to work on more. It's just like,
Self-love.
it's just like doing things I want to do and being okay telling people, like setting boundaries, basically. So with my 35th birthday, I'm trying to set more boundaries. Now, one question I have for you guys is, in our 30s, how are you celebrating your birthdays, and how do birthdays make you feel at this point? That's my question I have for you.
Depressed.
Tell me more.
I like the idea of getting older, man. Like, okay, so my youngest brother, well, I've only got one brother. My younger brother's 18 years younger than me, so he's just turning 18 this year. Earlier today, he's talking to me, and we're talking about computer games, right? We're talking about GoldenEye on the N64. And I've said, the best shoot 'em up ever. He's like, maybe for old people. I'm like, for any real gamer. And he's like, but real gamers are 34 and over. If you want a class of real gamer as somebody that's played on multiple consoles. And I'm like, dude, I'm 37 this year. Like, it's depressing, man. Like, I'm having to, when I go to barbers, they have to trim gray hairs out of my beard because I don't want no grays. Like, that's why I ain't been for a hot minute. See? Like, yeah, so birthdays make me depressed. Aging makes me depressed. I want to be back to 28.
Will?
I don't know if I'll go depressed. I'll say self-reflective is definitely something that I feel like happens. Well,
Contemplative.
actually, do you want to know what's funny though? Is and this has happened more and more frequently over the last couple years. Is so like when we were recording on your birthday was Friday, so we were recording what Thursday night after the Bulls game, and I went to wish you a happy birthday, and you were like, "Oh shit, it's my birthday." I totally forgot. I've done that 2 of the last 3 years.
Frank,
Where
forgot your birthday again. Damn it.
where like it literally just like it just kind of almost like sneaks up. And I remember one of them was like during the pandemic, and like we were literally taking one of our first like just getaways just to like do something, and we were driving from Austin to Santa Fe. And I remember just in the car, just randomly, I like happened to like was trying to like change the music or whatever on my phone. I saw it was the 21st, and I was like, or is the 20th? And I was like, oh shit, it's my birthday tomorrow. And literally Lorena was like, yeah, no shit, you idiot. And I was like, I just like totally forgot. She's like, this is part of the reason we're on this trip is like we're like doing it as like a reason to do something. And I was like, yeah, totally slipped my mind.
Over my head. The
Yeah,
Pedro Martinez
exactly.
references over Adam's head. Why we're celebrating over Will's head.
Yeah. And then I guess the other part of your question is just like how you like. I mean, I think I've always just felt like I just like to have the people that I like to be around. Like, let's just have like I like have a couple drinks and be around each other. Just like have a good time. That's always kind of my ideal type of gathering. If it's not centered around sports, is like a couple of drinks, shooting the shit. There's nothing better than that type of night for me with the people that you want to be around. That like you are able to choose. Like this is the group, not like not everybody. Just the people that are like meaningful.
It's like a mini version of your bachelor party, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Like for me, I think now that I've got your guys' opinion, I'd love to give my own. I want
Once
I
again,
want
happy birthday to me.
happy birthday to me. Happy
That
birthday to
tickled me,
me.
that did. Now you guys have spoke. Let me get back to my point.
Yeah. Oh man. So on my bachelor party, right? I don't know when it's gonna be. I don't know if we're gonna do a co-bachelor party. I don't know what we're gonna do, but I just want to like be with my homies. I want to play basketball, maybe play a round of golf, maybe drink a nice glass of whiskey. Like I don't need to go to Vegas and like blow my load. Like I don't need to do that. So I think like the birthday weekend that I had, I went out to dinner with my fiance, which was great. Got some great Italian food. Shout out to Gino's Vinos. I played ball with Will and a bunch of my friends in the morning, which was super fun. We played ball for a couple hours. I got a pedicure fire, got my feet got my got all my calluses removed, got, like a feet scrub. They were like rubbing orange peels all over my legs and stuff. It was great. A little self-care. And then Will came over and it was just me, Will, and Danielle. She made it to halftime and we were just watching the Celtics, and then I finished watching the UFC by myself at the end of the night. To me, that's really all I need. That's really all I need on my birthday.
Yeah.
Like the most aside from my immediate family, right, who obviously are super important in my life as well. Like Will is going to be the best man at my wedding, and then my fiance and my dogs. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of all I need for my birthday. I don't really need much else. Like I know some people want to have a big party and go out and get everyone together. Like I don't really need that. That's just personal, you know. And I think earlier in my life, I would have been like, oh, everybody needs to get together or everybody wants to get together. But in terms of like setting boundaries, that's all I wanted to do was that. That's literally all I wanted to do. And like, it was my birthday. I don't need anybody else involved. This is what I want to do. I'm going to make it happen. I don't need to worry about hurting other people's feelings because nobody really gives a shit. That's all like egocentric thinking. It's like nobody really cares. It's just like, do what you want to do. And people are going to go on with their own fucking life.
Self-love and growth. Love to see it. Happy Kevin Durant year. Happy Reggie Lewis year. I don't know what year we're going with here, but happy 35th birthday, Greg. Adam,
thank you.
The Rock's in your court. What you got for us?
I want to say happy birthday too. Happy 35th birthday, Greg.
Thank you, brother.
I want to go. Okay, so I want to build off this, right? Because I came into this kind of expecting to build off whatever discussion we were having. I didn't want to come in with a topic and then be like, man, this doesn't make sense. Right, so I want to build off this. So we're talking about people that you want to be around, everything, right? So here's a question that I've been battling with for a while. Obviously, my life is very, very, very online. The job I do is very, very, very online. And that means that the majority of my human interactions, guess what they are? Very, very, very online. It kind of all just fucking ties in, right? So then you end up building these friendships with people online. So then as a kid, like for us, we grew up in an era without internet, right? And then we kind of come up when internet dating was like taboo. Like, man, you met your chick on the internet. Is she a
Yeah.
fucking weirdo?
Yeah.
Why don't you go meet a
Yeah.
woman at the grocery store like a normal person? You know, hang around the melon section and start helping out or whatever. Or like then, as you like, smartphones came, dating came. Like now it's very acceptable. Like, you met your woman in real life, like you met your girlfriend or your boyfriend in real life, like
Yeah.
before you were
At
together
a bar.
like they did back when in the old days. Like, you know,
It sounds crazy.
Everything's
Man, that's crazy.
That's
Dude,
crazy. You know,
crazy.
Adam. But before you finish your point, I had somebody message me on Instagram. I think it was my guy Arthur Guinness. But he hit me up and he just wrote like, "That's crazy." And he was like, "Dude, I've had that stuck in my head since you guys started talking about that guy." He's like, "All I hear in my head is that's crazy." So shout out to Arthur Guinness. Go ahead,
So,
Adam. Sorry.
yeah, so obviously the way we perceive relationships and internet kind of like friendships and stuff has completely flipped from when we were kids, right? Now it's much more normal. I remember reading an article about some guys that had been playing on Call of Duty and Xbox together for 10 years. One of them died and they all fucking flew out to a funeral. And like, but our age, I'm still like, dude, these are my internet friends. But in my head, I'm like, dude, no, you spend more time speaking to these people like you, Will, Brendan, than you do with normal people. So how do you kind of define, how do you know, when it's not just an internet friend, but now you're friends? Where's that? When does that when does that cut off happen? When do we go from this is just someone I speak to on the internet to now this is my boy?
That's a great question.
Well,
and
go ahead, Will.
what I was just gonna say is like, I'm not quite like because like you said, your whole job is like being online, right? So for me, when we've really started to get into the podcast, is the first time I've really felt like, you know, it's been taking, you know, there's a virtual world and then there's like my real life world, right? It's almost like two separate entities.
Mine are like this.
Exactly. And so I still have a little bit more of that separation, I think, just based on like, you know, the full-time job I have in outside stuff. But with this, I have started to be like, I very much know the people that I interact with multiple times, or like it becomes like, as you're saying, like this feels like a real friend. This like, but I'm still I'm not going to be very helpful here because my kind of point is I'm still grappling with like, yeah, I wonder if that person actually would think of me as a friend, or if we are just internet friends that occasionally
Like
tweet at each other or send a DM here or there. And it's just interesting to think about. I don't know. I'm still struggling with like trying to figure out where I'm at with certain relationships in that realm. So I don't have a good answer for you. It is a tough conundrum.
So I'm going to add on to this and just say, like, especially for me, the more I've kind of become more online for work wise, the more I've kind of removed myself from like people that aren't aligned with kind of like, you know, pushing forwards toward a goal. Like if I see you and you kind of just like, yeah, I'm happy where I am in life. That's good for you, but I'm kind of keeping it pushing. So I want people around me with that same energy. You know what I mean? So then I'm like, shit, I'm talking to these online people. As you say, people are in your DMs. I've got DMs going back with people for like 4 years. And I'm like, I don't really see them as a friend though. But maybe they are. Do you know what I mean? It's hard.
But
I don't
in a weird way, like some of those relationships are more consistent and have more longevity than some of your like in-person friends as well. Like there are a few people that will message me on Instagram and whatnot, or like respond to all my stories, and they've been like responding to all my stories for like over a decade now. You know what I mean? But like I literally don't know the last time I saw that person in person.
Yeah.
So in some way, I'm like, oh, like I really appreciate this person for over 10 years now, liking my, you know, like liking my posts.
Well, no,
and sending
this
me
is
messages.
a good point. Like I feel like I've almost revived some old friendships that are now online friendships. They used to be like I knew them maybe in high school, or they were an acquaintance at like an old job or something, you know.
Right.
But now it's become an online friendship where, to your point, Greg, it's like the whole conversation is built up in either my Twitter DMs or my Instagram stories of like, you know, them commenting on videos, me responding back, they send me a clip or something. And so it is really weird how that line has blurred no matter whether you're coming in from your perspective, Adam, or from like, I feel like I'm in the middle of you two, because Greg, you also are promoting music as well. So you have like multiple online relationships with music, with sports and podcasting. And so, but those lines, they become so blurred into this day and age that it is kind of fascinating that like the way that I mean, we started out as online friend shit. This was an online friendship.
So let's
now
do it like this.
Real friendship.
When did we go from being just online friends that podcast together to, yeah, that's my boy? When did that happen?
Honestly, what I think it was, Adam, was when Will and I literally got together outside of you saying you were like coming to Boston. And I was like, dude, like, I think we need to go to Boston. Like, Adam's our homie. This is going to solidify it for you to see that we were willing to go to Boston.
That meant close to me, that did.
Right. And I think like it always comes down to, when does the online cadence that you've established with somebody go beyond what's comfortable and become something that's outside of the box, right? Like, for example, if somebody who DMs me or responds to all my stories, the next time I'm in Boston, if they're like, oh man, like I would really like to get together with you. And maybe I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of comfortable with it. I'm kind of comfortable with the way things are going right now. Like, I don't need to do that, versus I'm going to make the effort to like go out.
It's the COVID rules are in effect, 6 feet at all times.
So let me put it on this then. So I think that makes a really good point, right? So you don't necessarily have to meet with them, but it has to be to a point where it's like, yo, me and Brendan have never met like that, but we've had 5-hour conversations just on screen, right? So like, I think there is a point where
this is Brendan Nunes, for those of you listening, who covers the Kings and has been on the show many times.
He's my homie, same as you two. It's the three of you guys, and then I'd probably add Keith Smith into that for me. What I want to say though is moving to the next point of what I wanted to make was now, and I've just come to this because you've said going to Boston and meeting people. I think one day next season, if the Celtics win a championship this year, I think to begin next season, we should try and do a live podcast episode in Boston. Like, rent out a room, people can come, you know, we'll sit on a stage and we'll do like the big time podcast because we've been here from the rebuild, right? So I feel like we need to do that. I just want to end my segment with that and pass the rock to Will.
No, that would be great. I think I would love to do that, and I think we got a few connections in Boston. We can find a venue and we can set that up and make that happen. All right, so I'm gonna combine. Mine's gonna be a little bit mixed with basketball, but I want you guys to help me figure something out. I'm pretty sure I'm a hypocrite, but I think I'm cool with it. And what I want to and what I want to talk about is, so you guys saw earlier in the week, right? Kevin Durant and the fan in Dallas. In which, you know, he called him a bitch. Kevin Durant comes up and confronts him, which, by the way, one of my favorite answers. So I host a sports podcast, and then Katie immediately just walks away. That was unbelievable, which was also, I think maybe we need to go out in the world and just try to start calling people bitches. And then when they confront us, be like, well, listen, I host a sports podcast, so it's okay. But what I wanted to get into is the gray of fan behavior, because I do think there's a very obvious line that we don't need to talk about. Slurs, throwing stuff, you know, racial, going to people's family. Like, of course, that's all out of bounds. That's all, you know, stuff that you should not be doing. And I'm not promoting whatsoever. I also don't really necessarily agree with this guy, obviously, calling Kevin Durant a bitch. I don't really think that's cool. But here's where I think I become a bit of a hypocrite. And Adam, you talked about this a little bit with Monica McNutt in the Celtics preview.
And Will, can I play this clip for Adam? Because I don't think he's seen it.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Have you not seen this, Adam?
I have not seen this. This did not hit my radar.
All right. Yeah. Please go ahead and pull this up, Greg.
Okay. Give me 1 second. And to find this clip, I typed into Twitter, Durant bitch. So that's what I typed into in order to find this. Oh, here we go. I got to pull it up here.
The best part of that clip is why you call me a bitch. I host a sports podcast. Kevin Red just goes, fuck out of here.
Right, so I'm going to go full Stephen A on this right now. That guy gives every other sports podcaster a bad name. I hate him. I would have punched him in the face my damn self. Like, straight up.
So that's number one, is that I really hope this guy does not get any type of spike from this, because that's just super annoying. But what I wanted to get is, number one, I like that Kevin Durant, if you're going to say it like that, like, all right, tell me why. Like, I do appreciate that. But it got me thinking about fan behavior. And what I wanted to say is Adam, you and Monica McNutt touched on this a little bit in the Celtics Knicks preview about like the intensity of like Celtics Knicks. And I think it was earlier in the season, they had like a, fuck you, KP, or whatever the chant was. Celtics have had before, fuck you, Draymond. Like, and the thing that I'm realizing I'm probably a hypocrite about, what happened with Kevin Durant, like when it's a one-on-one fan interaction like that, I totally side with the players against it. Like, I think that's kind of crossing a line. But I also freaking love when an entire arena is calling one individual a bitch. Might be a little bit of a stretch, but F you, Draymond, and Draymond, you're a bitch, is not all that different when there's 20,000 people chanting that. And I'm totally cool with that. I subscribe to it. I want to be in the mix. I want to be there. I want to be a part of that environment. So what I've tried to wrestle with the other day is like, am I just a massive hypocrite that I'm cool with it when the collective is coming at an individual, but when it's one-on-one, I'm like, that's a bridge too far? I don't know. Like, what do you guys think on this?
I'll let Adam go first.
I got some takes, so I'll go. Thank you very much. First of all, I think that when it's one-on-one, it's a lot more personal. It's a personalized attack. So I think that bitch to me is something that I'd take offense to, and I know that it's a lot of people find that as an offensive word. I always I always go back to the Cat Williams line where it's like, I'm only calling you a bitch because I don't know your name individually. However, if you hear me. So it's like, so I kind of think about it like that. But if someone looks at me and was like, "Yo, you're a bitch," I'd be like, "Who's a bitch?" I'm like, I'm big. I'm not bitch. I'm big. But then on the flip side, if there's a collective of people saying it, I'm kind of like, there's probably a joke there that I'm missing, or they're cheering against me because they've got a reason to. I don't know. I think I can rationalize it in my head more when it's a group of people, especially when you've signed up to play in front of a group of people. You're the away guy. You're coming into and it's like, fuck you, Draymond. All right, then cool. I don't think Draymond's going to be upset. But if everyone was shouting Draymond is a bitch, I think he's going to feel a certain type of way. So yeah, for me, if it's one-to-one, it's so much more direct. It's so much more personal. Like, put it like Twitter terms. If someone calls me a bitch on the timeline, I'm going to be a bit annoyed. If they come into my DMs to do it, I'm not going to be pleased at all, because now you've made it really personal. You know what I mean?
I like that example.
So that's kind of how I look at it. Like, if you insult me on Twitter, it's the crowd. And if you insult me in DMs, it's that incident there, and then be like, "Oh, I'm only insulting you so you'd respond so I could have you on my podcast." No, fuck you. No, I'm not coming on your podcast.
And okay, so part of this is like, for me, the way that insults, like the dictionary definition of what an insult is saying versus like the insult itself being removed from the words. So let me see if I can like explain that. So like, if you tell somebody to suck it, or if you say like you suck, right? That means like you will take your mouth and you will put it on my penis, right? That's what that means, literally. But when you tell someone to suck it, you're not actually saying that. It's just like an insult. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not actually saying that's what you need to do right
So
now.
what does bite me mean? Because I hear Americans say this in TV all the time, and it's not something that's said here.
Right, that's the thing. It's like an insult. Bite me means just like go screw, like fuck off, basically. Like bite me. But like I'm not actually telling you to bite me. So when that was probably a better one to talk about sucking.
It was a lot more family friendly. I'll say that.
It was a lot more family friendly. Maybe we can cut that in post. But I do think with crowds, when I was a high school athlete, there were a couple of crowds that we would go to that would personally like chant at me. You know what I mean? Because for whatever reason, like there were a couple of crowds. Like I remember Bedford, when we would go to Bedford, like they would literally call out my name and like chant at me. And I thought it was kind of funny. You know what I mean? So I think like when it's a crowd, and like Kobe loved it, you know, that classic commercial where Kobe's like, kind of conducting the symphony and people talking about like how much they hate him, and then they start singing to him or whatever.
It's a dope commercial, yeah.
Dope commercial. And like that to me is someone who understands the environment that they've chosen to be within. And if you're a professional athlete, you've chosen to be subjected to crowds chanting at you. That's why the sport is popular. That's why the sport generates interest. That's why you have the salary that you have. But like, it doesn't give anybody the right to look somebody in the eye and be like, fuck you, you're a bitch. If somebody said that to me, I'm not a violent person, but like, okay, we're going to have to talk about this now. You know what I mean? Like, because you looked me in the eye and said this to me, and those people, like that woman who like calls him a bitch and then immediately wants to shake his hand. Like, what is that about?
Yeah,
like,
that's
I've just never understood
some
it.
sauce.
Like, I would
it's
never
strange.
insult someone like that, like ever, unless I was like really. Okay, so here's the thing as well, though, right? Culturally, like the one word that Americans find really, really insulting, and English and Australian people use it like it's
The C word.
adjective.
We're not going to
Use
say
the
it
C
just
word.
in case.
No.
The C word,
Yeah, but
we know
we
where you're
use
going.
it.
Yeah.
We use it like it's a conjoining word in a sentence. Do you know what I mean? Like it's normal, but
that's how we
then
use. I feel like that's how we use motherfucker here.
yeah, probably, right? But we don't take offense to that. But you know, I use it as a term of endearment. How you doing? Yeah, and then you know, end it with that.
Yeah.
And I mean nothing by it. It's just how if I did that in America, somebody would want to fight, right? They'd be like,
Yeah, for
"Whoa,
sure.
that's a bit harsh. What did I do to you?" And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just saying hello." Like, you know what I mean? So I think that in a way, we have to understand as well, like, bitch can amongst your friendship group doesn't carry the same weight as it does towards a stranger.
Well,
And it's
let's
the
do
same.
this. Let's take like the specificity of bitch out of it just for a second, because I think this is a little bit of, we've seen this throughout the season, right? That there's been, I can't remember what was it. It was, I know it was also Mavs Suns, but they had somebody kicked out of the arena. I can't remember if it was Booker, if it was Luca, had somebody kicked out for what seemingly wasn't nearly as aggressive enough of a, from at least what I remember the details being, for someone to get kicked out. Like, you know, Greg, I think back to, we went to Celtics Sixers, the closest I've ever sat to being courtside. We were like 5 rows back, and me, Greg, and our 2 buddies are sitting there yelling at Ben Simmons at the free throw line, "You can't shoot. You can't shoot." Now, to me, that's 1000% in play. Like, that's all good. You know,
100%.
Russell Westbrook got upset a year or 2 ago. Someone was saying like Westbrook, he's like, put some respect on my name. Chill out, dude. This goes back to Greg, the whole thing that you
And
said
we've
about
all seen Russell Westbrook punch a fucking heavy bag. Like that dude, there's no way Russell Westbrook is like winning a fight versus anyone that, like, I'm taking Adam in a fight over Russell Westbrook because Adam actually trains MMA.
I'd be scared to fight an athlete like that, though. Like,
it
just
still
naturally
would probably be.
I mean, we
be
saw
a
Nate
little tough.
Robinson get knocked out by Jake Paul before Jake Paul knew how to box. So
True. But kind of just what I'm saying is like the fan player relationship is becoming more and more contentious, and sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes I feel like it's not. And so for me, I'm just saying, back to the whole, I'm a hypocrite and I'm cool with it. I miss the days where we can just know that like there's sports hate and there's real hate, and there's a very big difference between the two, and that there are things that are in line and that are okay to do kind of as a collective, but as a one-on-one individual, like, you have to know where those lines are and where those boundaries are. But I'm encouraging US fans, when the Warriors come to town on Sunday, fuck you, Draymond.
Go for Clay.
That shit going. I
Go
like
for
Clay. I
Clay.
don't want to do that. I like Clay.
I know,
I got a
Clay's
soft
having
spot
a bad
for Clay.
year right now, so
I
like,
know.
you know, it could just be like,
But I
how's
almost
that
feel like,
bench taste?
ooh, that'd be a good one. But I do feel like Clay's the type of dude that I worry about. He would be the type of dude that almost like responds.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Stuff, you know, like Draymond, like, what's he? I mean, as long as he doesn't take a swing at anybody, you know, like, he's still gonna do the same Draymond, try to do the same Draymond stuff. Like, there's not like Draymond's gonna go off and hit 4 threes because you're chanting at Draymond. Clay might actually do that.
yeah, and I think with the sports hate thing, it's like, if you bring it upon yourself, right? Like Draymond, all of the shit should be available for people to make fun of because he's done all of the stuff himself. It's all self-inflicted. Whereas like Clay, if in it, like, that borders on personal stuff, right? Like, you could probably come up with a clever chant about Draymond, like, talking to a therapist or something like that. And like, it'd be like somewhat okay. You know what I mean? Whereas like, if you did that with Clay, who's struggling with like coming to terms with being on the bench, and like maybe you find out some personal thing about Clay and you bring it into a chant. It's like not okay, because Clay is a good guy and he's never really done anything to like bring that level of personal attack on him.
Context matters, right? This is something we always say. Context
right.
matters.
And like if the crowd started, for example, chanting at Wiggins for all the personal shit that he went through, like that's not okay, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, but if it's about basketball, then sure, you can chant at Clay being on the bench. You could chant on Wiggins for struggling at the free throw line or whatever it is. With Draymond, I feel like he has removed all of that. And Draymond is like the exception, where you can get a little bit more personal and you can say, fuck you. And it's not like we're chanting fuck you in like a sports way. We're like actually telling Draymond like fuck you. You know what I mean? It's like almost is personal one-on-one at that point. But that's Draymond, dude.
It's Draymond, right? Draymond, like you said, Draymond invites this. And so, hey, Boston fans, for those of you that are listening, they're going to be at the Garden next Sunday. Let's give it to them. That's kind of where I land on it. I enjoy those atmospheres, and I expect it to be one at the Garden next Sunday. Guys, this is a fun episode. I enjoy this. This is going to be something that you guys will see a lot more going forward here. I have it broken down here. Fun time passing the rock. Real quick before we sign off here, just a quick reminder. Once again, every Thursday going forward, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, live stream on our YouTube, on our Twitter channel, or on our Twitter feed, on our YouTube channel. We'll be going live, and we really want these to be interactive. So please join us. Come bring some questions, have some comments. We'll throw out the topic probably Wednesday afternoon on our social, so you can be ready. You can come prepared. But yeah, if you want to get the notifications, make sure you are following us on YouTube. Join our memberships as well. You're going to get right now, if you're listening to this, if you're not a member, members have already listened to this. This is old news to them. So if you want to get this early, make sure you join that membership page right now. Greg and Adam are going to have some crunch time specials coming up here as we go down the stretch, as we go through this.
If we have crunch time. And
well, here's the thing. All the games on national TV really kind of mess that up. So we're going to have to find some workaround. So we'll try to find some other clips that we can put out there for you. But as always, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Adam, always a pleasure. Greg, any final thoughts here before we send the people out?
No final thoughts. One more thing, King. I'll let.
You want to wish up another happy birthday?
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. We're gonna play you out with some music from my band down here in Austin, Texas. This one is called "Get This High." Peace, everybody.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
You cut me to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, you know I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jason Tatum fade away. I close my eyes and I'm floating your river. I call to see if you open, you know I hope you deliver. Every time you're getting close, I still be sick with the shivers. But there's nothing like that first time.